Welcome into episode 1 of the Batcat Beat here on the Kentucky Sports Radio YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Hager. I'm your host. I'm also the Kentucky baseball beat writer. I'm extremely excited to launch this podcast today. We were meaning to launch it a week or two ago, but Kentucky basketball hired a new head coach. I think his name is Mark Pope. So plans kind of changed. But after this last weekend, it just showed that we definitely need a podcast for this beautiful sport. After 21,000 people filed into Kentucky Proud Park for Kentucky's series with Tennessee last weekend, you could say that it was the biggest weekend in Kentucky baseball history, breaking attendance records in both the first 2 days and then breaking it over the weekend. So on the first episode here, gonna kind of treat this as a premier primer episode, kind of going over things that maybe if you're just getting into Kentucky baseball after this weekend. I know hundreds of thousands of people. That was probably their first game that they attended this weekend, which is awesome to hear. So we're kind of going to go over a season recap, what's gotten us to this point where we're at now, the impact players that you need to know if you're following this team down the stretch as they go towards Hoover and hopefully Omaha. Field of 64 projections, where they're at right now, who they would be projected to play, strengths and weaknesses of the team, and then what's coming up on the docket. So we'll start out kind of going over how we've gotten to this point. Kentucky is currently ranked 4th in the country by D1 Baseball. They were 3rd in the country last week prior to their weekend series with Tennessee. Tennessee was ranked 4th, and they ended up flip-flopping after the weekend. Kentucky is 32-7 overall, 15-3 in the SEC. Started the season 14-1 in the SEC, which was their best start in program history. They remain they have the best record in the SEC as of right now, and they remain 3 games ahead of Tennessee even after the series loss. So taking it back to the beginning of the season, the Batcats opened the season on the road at USC Upstate. They made the NCAA tournament last season. Either they made or they were really close to making it out of the Big South. Really quality squad. Swept them, took down Moorhead here. They then went to the Carbach Round Rock Classic in Dallas. Took 2 of 3 from that one, but did not come out on top. Washington State actually won the tournament. They defeated Kentucky in the second game, giving the Cats their first loss of the season. Kentucky comes back and they keep winning. They beat Western Kentucky. They sweep Lipscomb. They had 2 kind of topsy-turvy games against Eastern Kentucky. The first game, they run-ruled them here in Lexington. Then they went on the road. We're getting no hit until the 7th inning, and they ended up pulling that one off. Then they kind of ran into their first bump of the season when Kennesaw State came to town, and they took 2 of 3 from Kentucky. Kennesaw State is a solid team. They beat Clemson 18-1 earlier in the season, and Clemson is top 10 in the country. But then they start SEC play, and this kind of starts the discussion as Kentucky from an underrated team that might make a run to maybe a 2 or a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament to a legit team that could host a regional. So they swept Georgia, who has Charlie Condon, the nation's leading home run hitter. Even though Jack Caglianone is catching up to him, those 2 guys are mashing home runs at really a historic pace. Then you get Evansville to town. They then go on the road to Missouri, where they took 2 of 3. They really should have swept that series also, which would have meant they started off SEC play 15-0. But they kind of blew the second game. Miami of Ohio comes to town, pulled that one off. And what was an ugly one full of 20 walks or something like that. Then they go to Oxford and Ole Miss. This was really where the national media kind of started to doubt them, Kentucky, and they went and they took care of business. They waxed Ole Miss. They swept the series and then downed down them, I believe it was 17-1 in the final game. And this is where they really start making their descent. I believe they're 17th in the country at this time. They jump from 17 to 12, and then to 8, and then to 3. They swept Alabama at home. This just kept their resurgence up. Dominic Nyman had a dominant performance in the second game where he pitched a complete game shutout. We asked him after the game, had he ever done that? And he had never done that at any level. The Central Connecticut State transfer has been a really welcome addition to a pitching staff that lost some quality arms last year in a Austin Strickland, a Tyler Bosma, Logan Martin, Zach Lee, and Darren Williams. Then they went on the road to Samford, where they lost their first midweek game of the season. And what was kind of a weird game, they fell behind early. Drew Lafferty got off to a rough start. Samford just kept responding. They'll probably make the NCAA tournament. Then they go on the road to Auburn, which was, I believe, about an hour ride from Samford. Went and swept that one, including a 7-0 comeback in the final game, and won. That would probably be the wildest game of the year. And then we come back to this week. They went to Louisville last week, 17-13 win. They didn't play that game in Louisville last year, but they played it in Lexington, and it flip-flopped this year, where the game in Lexington this year will probably not be played. It was postponed due to rain, and I'd really be shocked if they ended up playing that, but they played it in Louisville, and Blue got in. Big Blue chant, go Big Blue chant started ringing out near the end of the game. Always a great sight to see. And then Tennessee this past weekend. UK opened the series with a 5-3 win, including a awesome final inning from Johnny Hummel. I put this on the board, KSR Plus. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing with all this baseball? We've got awesome baseball threads over there, and then we've got the basketball rumors, which a lot of people are interested in. Scoop and some scuttlebutt football as well. They've got you covered over there. But I put on the board, Johnny Hummel makes his entrance to Sheryl Crow's Real Gone, which was used in Cars, which is one of my favorite movies growing up. And that started playing. And that was the first time that I had gotten goosebumps in the press box in my year and a half covering the team. So that was awesome. They set the attendance record that night, but then it was shattered the next day. 7,300 people got into KPP, but it didn't start off great at all. Tennessee went up 5-0 without recording an out. And what was Dominic Nyman's worst performance of the season, which kind of came out of nowhere because Nyman had only allowed one earned run in his last 14 1/3 inning pitched. So it really caught everyone off guard. They tied through the rest of the game 4-4, but the first inning sunk them. Then we go to the rubber match on Sunday. Tennessee comes out 13-11. The ball was flying out of right field, and Kentucky just they lost their first SEC series of the season. Getting into some impact players, there are a lot of guys that are new on this team that have really assumed a leadership role that Nick Mingione has given to them. We'll start off with Nick Lopez, who has the best mustache in college baseball, batting .386 with 14 doubles, which is tied for third in the SEC. Ryan Waldschmidt, who's batting .361, who really has been one of the best players in all of college baseball over the last 8 or so games. He dominated against Louisville. He hit 2 home runs, drove in 6 RBI. He's 21 for 42 in his last 42 at bats, which is exactly on the 500 line. He also has a 6-game hit streak, a 10-game hit streak, actually, but he has multiple hits in 8 of those games. You get to Emilian Petrie and Grant Smith, who I believe are one of the, if not the best defensive infields in the country. Out of looking on my notes here, because I want to get it exactly correct, 104 opportunities, just 4 errors between the two players. Grant Smith was a Gold Glove finalist last season. I guarantee you he gets back there this year. Ryan Nicholson is another transfer. He came from Cincinnati. We weren't really sure what his defined role was going to be when Samford first baseman Stephen Klein, who won a Gold Glove last season. He also plays first base. He committed to Kentucky just after Nicholson did, but he was not able to get eligible. So, kind of looking back on that, I'm not really sure how this team makeup would really look if he was eligible because Nick Lopez started the season at third, but due to some defensive issues, he made his way to DH, and the rest was history. Mitch Daly took over at third. He's been a really solid piece as well. The transfer from Texas. One of the biggest stories that I've personally been following all season is Nolan McCarthy's breakout year. Him and James McCoy kind of rotated in the outfield last year when you had Walshman left and Jackson Grant center field. But it's been really cool to see McCarthy come into his own this year in center field. He's batting 308. He's just 2 hits away from surpassing his total from all of last season, um, including the glove. His glove is great. Waldschmidt's glove is great. They both made great plays against Louisville. James McCoy's glove is great. All around, just Kentucky. If they're not the best defensive team in the SEC, I don't know. I believe that they're pretty high up there. Kind of getting back into the pitching staff. We'll start off with Mason Moore, who kind of rose to prominence in last season's Lexington Regional. He came out of the bullpen. He pitched 10 innings in the regional. I don't believe he gave up a single earned run. He was named to the all-regional team. He has made 10 starts this season, 3.98 ERA. Dominic Nyman has made 10 starts as well, the transfer from Central Connecticut State, and his ERA is up to 4.08. Retouching on Johnny Hummel, who I touched on earlier. 5 saves on the season. He was named to the NCBWA midseason stopper of the year list earlier today. He's pitched 21 and 2/3 innings and has a 1.25 ERA. And it was 0.95 heading into the Tennessee game. So he has really, really shined in what will be his one and only season in Lexington. And then one of the more interesting stories, one of the best ploys by Minchione, I believe, this season was moving Travis Smith out of the starting rotation and replacing him with Trey Poozer, who transferred from the College of Charleston. He was a starter there, but he assumed a reliever role here at Kentucky over his first 5 or so appearances. Travis he was the only UK player in D1 Baseball's draft list. I believe he was 98th best draft prospect in the country, but he was a little underwhelming in his starting spot. So he was moved out to the bullpen, and Trey Poozer was moved in. He's now started 5 games. It's a 3.97 ERA. So him and Moore and Nyman are all kind of in that bunch of right at the 4 ERA mark. And Travis has really, really done well out of the bullpen prior to the Tennessee game. Prior to the Tennessee game, he pitched 9 innings out of the bullpen and allowed just 1 run, which is an ERA of 9. But he did give up 5 earned runs against Tennessee, which really jacked that ERA up to 15, I believe. But the move Travis will pay off. Tennessee is one of the best offensive teams in the country for a reason, and Kentucky just couldn't pull it off against them. This Kentucky team has been really fun to watch. Just talking to the casual viewer, I know that Matt mentioned it on the radio. These guys are always going crazy in the dugout. Their excitement has transformed a dugout of just guys sitting on the ledge to something you can't look away from, and that's really what has kind of brought the love of the Big Blue Nation to these guys. When Mason Moore is wearing his pink hats, and they've got the firefighter helmet in there and Spider-Man taped up, and it's just a lot of fun. It's been a rough maybe 2 or 3 years in the UK athletics, and this has kind of been a bright shining light in all of that. I know last year's team just won the Catsby for Team of the Year, which is really awesome to see for Nick. Heading into strengths and weaknesses, it's kind of hard to divvy these out because some of them are counteractive. One of their strengths is stolen bases. They do lead the SEC in stolen bases, but they also lead the SEC in caught stealing. Sometimes I'm not really sure what's going through Nick's head when he sends these guys. There have been multiple times. I know it's actually been more lately than anything that maybe there'll be a guy on first and third with two outs, and he'll send a guy from first to second. And in a situation you don't really need that. I know he's loved having Walt Schmidt try and steal third, and he's gotten gunned out a few times on that. So that has kind of caught up to them lately. Catchers are on their heels, knowing what they need to be aware of. Another one of their weaknesses is kind of lingering injuries, which they've kind of dealt with that all year. I know Nolan McCarthy dealt with an injury earlier in the season, and now Devin Burke's dealing with his hamstring injury that he sustained against Louisville. I really honestly cannot believe that he played against Tennessee in the first game when he scored. I know Ryan Walshman had an awesome quote about it. As Devin was rounding third, heading home, he was practically walking because his hamstring was so tight, and the throw was off, which allowed him to score. But Waldschmidt was like, he was looking around and he was like, "What is he doing?" And he scored. So um, they're gonna need Devin to get healthy. I know he homered in the Tennessee series, which was his first home run in like 2 months. Mr. Wildcat at the Catspies last night. This team will go when Devin goes, and he really went last season near the end of the season, which won him Lexington Regional Most Outstanding Player. All right. D1 Baseball today released their latest field of 64 projections, and Kentucky fell one spot. They were the number 4 national seed last week prior to the Tennessee series, but they're now the number 5 national seed, paired with West Virginia, California, and Bowling Green. West Virginia is 23-16 in the Big 10 or the Big 12, 11-7 in conference. California 25-14, 11-10 in conference, and Bowling Green 22-12, 17-1. So the Lexington Regional, this will be the second consecutive season that Kentucky has a regional in Lexington, which will be the first time ever, and I'll actually be at this one. So it really is a true testament to what Nick Mingione has built here in Lexington. He told the story on Sunday after the Tennessee game to Joe Healy of D1 Baseball. He was talking about how when they were in Baton Rouge for the LSU Super Regional last season, he talked to one of their legendary managers, and he asked Nick, "How do you get these guys? How do you get the fans to come to baseball in Lexington, and what is such a baseball town?" And he said, "If you win, they'll come." And he certainly has done that. When I took this job a year and a half ago, I really wasn't sure what Nick's future looked like. I know he'd been put on the hot seat after the 2022 season. 21 and 22, they didn't have great seasons. 22, they actually made the deepest run in the SEC tournament that they ever had in program history, but it was still short of making an NCAA tournament. But he has really turned UK into they've really floated around the top 15 or 10 nationally for 2 consecutive seasons, and that has been really impressive to see. We'll finish off the first episode kind of talking about what's coming up for Kentucky as we head into the weekend. And next week, the format of the show will look a little different, where this one's just a primer. Next week, hopefully, we're having Derek Terry on, another Kentucky baseball insider that we are lucky to have with us at KSR. So it won't just be me yapping about what's been going on about this season. We're just trying to get the show off on a good start and kind of get everyone up to speed. So coming up, they've got 6 opponents left, 4 SEC series. They start on the road this weekend at South Carolina, who are ranked 20th in the country, 27-13 overall, 9-9 in conference play. Um, Looking through their lineup, it really is interesting because they have Ethan Petrie, who is one of the best players in the SEC, but he's only batting 296. No players on their roster are batting over 300, where UK has 4 or 5. I thought that was interesting. They have 2 less team home runs than UK does, which UK has really bolstered that as of late. They entered the series before Tennessee, I believe. Maybe Auburn, they were near the bottom of the SEC in home runs hit, and they have just consistently hitting. They're hitting 2 or 3 a game now, and Nick Mingione said at the beginning of the season, this is how he wants to win: bunts and bombs, and they certainly have been executing on that as of late. After they've got South Carolina for 3 games this weekend. Carolina has some pretty good wins. They swept Vanderbilt at home. Vanderbilt's ranked 7th in the country. They got a win over Texas A&M and Arkansas, who are the number 1 team in the country and number 2 in the country. And they got a win over North Carolina, their rival North Carolina, who are ranked 15th in the country. Following Carolina, Kentucky has Arkansas at home on Derby weekend, which I expect to be hopefully another awesome crowd. Hopefully over 6,800 people can show up, kind of keep that momentum going, especially with the top 5 team coming into town. Then you liken it to the chicken guys coming to town. It should be a lot of fun. They've only got 2 midweeks left. Xavier on the road at Cincinnati and Wright State at home. The series that interests me the most is at Florida, because Florida has been one of the kind of weirder teams in college baseball all season. They've really struggled in their midweek games. I know they've got losses to St. John's and Stetson, and they have the best player in college baseball, Jack Caglianone. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out. They played at KPP last season, and that was probably the highlight of the regular season, closing out the victory with a win over Florida. And then they close out the regular season against Vanderbilt, who I believe swept UK in Nashville last season. So Joe Healy of D1 Baseball earlier or last week was talking about what UK needed to do to really secure that super regional spot. And he said they really needed to go 9-6 or 8-7 over their final 15 games to really lock that up. They've got 1 win. If they can win the series in Carolina, there's 3. Arkansas is a really tough task, and they've got the best pitcher in the country, Hagen Smith, who will probably go on Friday night. So if you can get 1 or 2 over Arkansas at home, you're now up to 5. You've got Florida and Vanderbilt, maybe twos, and all they got to do is get in the top 8. They've never hosted a super regional in Lexington, and this season really shows a prime opportunity to do so. If you're not all in on this team is so much fun to watch, to come to the games and don the pink hats. I know people were wondering what the pink hats are all about. Mason Moore, he told this story 2 weeks ago. Freshman left-hander Ben Cleaver brought one of the pink hats, and they were wearing it in the dugout, just kind of looking to add random things. This was just the first of many things that they had added. And Mason put it on, and it spread like wildfire. Mason's family started wearing the pink hats, and now everyone's wearing the pink hats. The culture at the park is great. For a state-of-the-art park, it was really awesome to see it filled up. The series, or the future, is really bright this season for the Cats. Ready to go next week following the South Carolina series. We should be back either Sunday night or Monday with the second episode of the Bat Cat Beat. I'll be joined by Derek Terry. I won't be just riding solo. Always got to get the awkward first episode out of the way. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week.